everybody. This is Robert Kinsler.
And this is TJR.
And welcome to The News. This is a weekly show where TJ and I discuss the music news headlines and new music releases that have grabbed our interest and that we want to share with everybody. So how are you doing, TJ?
I'm doing good. Good. How are you?
Hey, good. I know we have a few things to talk about this week.
Well, we'll get to it later, but just real quick, among them will be just a quick tribute to Brian Wilson, who celebrated his 80th birthday a few days ago. We talked about Paul McCartney last week, so we have to talk about Brian Wilson. And we'll be discussing that in a bit. But let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. I know you got something that you told me about before we started here, and I just had not known about this. I'm real excited.
Right.
Hear you tell me more.
This to me is actually pretty big news, and I did write about it on my blog, but I didn't hear much about it. So I want to help get the word out. On June 21st, so just a few days ago, premium network Epix announced an upcoming 4-part docuseries.
This is TJR, and these videos are made possible by our patron supporters and viewers like you. Become a patron supporter and you'll get your name in the credits and exclusive weekly videos not available on the channel. If you can't be a patron supporter, you can still show your support by clicking like and letting these videos play to the very end. This helps the YouTube algorithm recommend us to more viewers like you. Thanks for your support. Back to the program.
Titled My Life as a Rolling Stone. Now, this is tied to the band's 60th anniversary, but you know what's really interesting about this is each episode, it's going to be in 4 parts, is going to be tied to one of the members of the band. So one episode is going to focus on Mick Jagger, another one on Keith Richards, another one on Ronnie Wood, and then they're also going to have an episode dedicated and focused on Charlie Watts, who unfortunately passed away, the late drummer. And I'll read from the press release here. Each is going to explore different dimensions of their personalities, their musical brilliance, and their cultural impact. The series aims to reveal the Rolling Stones' creativity, their inspirations, and how they individually and collectively have overcome adversity, notoriety, and personal demons to write the soundtrack of our times. So it sounds really neat, and this is going to premiere on August 7th. So if you do have that network, I think you're definitely going to want to plan to tune in.
Or just get a subscription long enough to watch it.
Exactly.
So I'm real intrigued by this whole idea, the idea that each episode deals with a different member. But I really think they could make more of this, that we should have an episode about the other members of the Rolling Stones who are no longer members or have passed away. There should be one for Bill Wyman.
There should be, right.
Yeah. And there should be one for Brian Jones.
The original founding guitar player, Brian Jones, exactly. And then probably Mick Taylor, who replaced Brian Jones and was such an essential part of the band during one of their high marks. So but again, maybe they're starting here and they're going to see where everything leads.
I hope so. I mean, I'll be happy if that's all we get, then fine. That's still great. But they really need to do the same for everybody we've just mentioned here.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Let us know what you think about that, everybody.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. That is very cool. Yeah. Like I said, I don't have Epic, but I mean, I would subscribe just for a month so I could watch it.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely worth, I'm sure I don't know what the fee is going to be, but I can't imagine it's too much. I can't imagine it's any more than the bigger streaming platforms, probably less. I will want to check that out. Speaking of film, you know Rob Zombie?
I do.
Yeah, White Zombie. They had some hits in the 90s. Probably a lot of people know that Rob Zombie has kind of moved away from music and more into filmmaking. Most of his filmmaking has been horror films. And we're talking, heavy R-rated films, for violence, gruesomeness, and all the usual horror stuff. But Superfan sends me a text. Teaser trailer for the Rob Zombie directed adaptation of The Munsters is online. I'm like, what? I mean, how did I not know that this was happening? I'm sure it was out there on the internet, but for whatever reason, I just didn't know. But I'm like, he's directing The Munsters, an adaptation? I thought, but this is Rob Zombie. Is this going to be like some dark R-rated comedy, a dark comedy, or like have all gruesomeness in it. And I thought, what is he going to do? To my surprise, this is going to be a PG-rated film. It's not even going to be PG-13. It's going to be a family movie, basically. Rob Zombie is going to direct a family movie. It's going to be the Munsters, of course. And if the writing is good on this, and that's what's going to be the thing, is the writing, hopefully it will have the kind of comedy that implies darker, edgier things than it actually says and shows, so that it can still be a family-rated film.
Yeah.
You never know. My brain has just kind of been going into like overdrive about the possibilities of this. Could be really fun. I'm hoping so. You know, I mean, it could also be terrible too. You never know. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's something really fun. You know, I'm sure you have fond memories of the Munsters TV show.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't? I mean,
Absolutely.
it was so fun to watch that when I was a kid. Yeah, I love that show. Yeah.
My mom used to call Fred Gwynn, who played Herman Munster. She used to, when I was a kid, and I would watch that show, and she watched it with me. She would oftentimes refer to him as her boyfriend.
Okay.
You'd say, "That's my boyfriend."
Okay.
Anyways.
Good. So speaking of the Munsters in the 60s, this is a curiosity, but I want to share the news with people. William Shatner, as everyone knows, became the world's oldest person when he went into space.
To go into space.
Went into space on the Blue Horizon or Blue Origin. You help me out there, but a Blue Origin, and that was with the rocket owned by Jeff Bezos. So what they've done now, it's actually pretty interesting, is to commemorate that flight and his kind of legacy. They're releasing a 7-inch vinyl 2-sided single. One side is going to have his version of Rocket Man, the famous Elton John track, his version of that. That was included on William Shatner's 2011 album, Seeking Major Tom. And the B side is going to be his version of David Bowie's Space Oddity. And what I want to be very forthright with everyone out there. I'm not a big fan necessarily of his version of Rocket Man, but I do love William Shatner's version of the David Bowie track. And I think in large part because it features Ritchie Blackmore of Deep Purple fame, and his guitar interplay with the way William Shatner delivers the lyrics. It's just very cool and just kind of appeals to my sensibilities. So that's the B side of the single. And I know you and I were looking around. I don't know when exactly that's going to be available physically. I know you can stream the single Rocket Man now, which has been remastered from the 2011 version, but that is on its way. So maybe, go to Amazon or go to Cleopatra Records official website and see if you can pre-order that. But obviously it's of historical note, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, when you said his famous rendition of Rocket Man, his rendition of Rocket Man is certainly infamous too.
Infamous. Yeah.
And I remember being a kid in the late 70s, they had the first and only ever TV broadcast of the science fiction film and TV awards, movie and TV awards, with William Shatner hosting, and he performed Rocket Man. And that performance has lived on in infamy.
It has.
Yes. Yeah.
And all this science, I don't understand.
But
it's led to a whole career for,
It sure has.
It's just a job. 5 days a week.
I mean, and as readers or viewers may know, my readers as well, about 10 years ago, I saw William Shatner perform at the Coach House, and I have to tell you, it was a cool concert. I mean, he was touring, I think, in support of the album Ponder the Mystery. So it was a progressive rock album with these amazing players, very intricate music, and then he had these lyrics about life and everything. And I do find it fascinating. It's some pieces might be stronger than other pieces, but you have to give the guy credit for kind of developing the style that's kind of lived on, and he's been able to successfully release a whole series of albums.
You're absolutely right, and that. Like I said, he's done some serious work since then in the realm of music, and I won't begrudge him that at all.
Yeah.
And he's also done some great comedy work, intentional comedy work,
Right.
like when he was on the MTV Music Awards, and he had a backup band, and he covered a lot of different songs that were being nominated, and of course they were playing it up totally for laughs, and he was playing it up for laughs too.
Yeah.
And it was still one of the funniest, some of the funniest TV moments ever.
The other thing, on a more serious note, perhaps, is Creedence Clearwater Revival, a version previously unreleased of "Traveling Band," was released as a limited edition 7-inch single on Record Store Day, which I believe was on June 18th,
Yeah, it was
right?
last weekend.
Yeah, last weekend. So, but even if you didn't get the single, please don't fear if you want to hear that, because that recording was basically the first taste of a track that's going to be on a full-length album coming out, and the name of that album is going to be called Creedence Clearwater Revival at the Royal Albert Hall, and that was recorded back in 1970. I can't for anywhere find a release date for when that album is coming out,
Yeah.
but it is very exciting news. Creedence Clearwater Revival in their original incarnation was not around that long, so anytime you have like a new recording coming out is very exciting, featuring John Fogerty and company. It's been more than 50 years, and we can look forward to that.
I am looking forward to that. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
And yeah, so let's both keep our ears to the ground. And once news comes out about that, we'll definitely bring it up here. I'm going to go ahead and talk about an album now. Now, you've been talking about some big name bands. I'm actually going to talk about a new release. As I'm prone to do every weekend, look at the new releases on Tidal. I'll just start poking around. Let's play this, see what it sounds like. Let's play this, see what it sounds like, And I came across an album entitled Sir Woman by a group called Sir Woman. I did some research on this, and it is the debut album from a band led by Kelsey Wilson, who was part of the very popular indie band Wild Child, not to be confused with the Doors tribute band of a similar name here in Southern California. In 2020, the band was going to release their debut album. It was going to be called Party City. And then the world changed. So the decision was made instead to release an EP in its place that was entitled Bitch. Fast forward to the present day, and we see the release of what was going to be Party City, but has just been retitled as Sir Woman. I heard this album and just immediately felt good. An immediate attitude adjustment is what I'm talking here. I'll describe this album as very upbeat, jazzy, pop-influenced soul music. And a lot of the pop and jazz, with a lot of that pop and jazz mixed in to the soul. And I think the best comparison I could make would be Lake Street Dive, which is a group I've talked about on Music Worth Buying and have reviewed favorably, and you've heard. Mm-hmm. And, if you like Lake Street Dive, you're probably going to like this self-titled album by Sir Woman. Yeah, it's just basically, it's a cool drink of water on a hot day. It's wonderfully and joyously chill. And as I said before, it's an instant attitude adjustment.
Right.
I just start feeling happy. Another album that does that for me that I'll mention is Steely Dan's Asia album. I immediately just feel better. And this album has a similar effect, and that's why I recommend it. My only complaint is that it's only available digitally on streaming. There's no physical release whatsoever. But I'll take what I can get, and hopefully there's a physical release soon that I can go out and buy. Right. But that's my album recommendation. What have you got for us this week?
Well, you mentioned Steely Dan, so you're going to love my discussion of this next title. Now, this is an album from Linda Hoover. Now, this is her debut album. We're in 2022, right? But this debut album was recorded in 1970, 52 years ago. You heard me right. The name of that album is I Mean to Shine. Now, this album was recorded back in 1970. She was only 19 years old. Very, very promising artist. Get this, she was working with a first-time producer named Gary Katz, but she was aided and assisted by this rising young songwriting and arranging duo by the name of Walter Becker and Donald Fagen. You might be familiar with them, of Steely Dan. They played on the album on the tracks. They wrote for the songs. She was also backed by future Steely Dan members, Danny Diaz and Jeff Skunk Baxter, the very well-known great guitar player. So they were among the people backing her up. And I have to tell you that this, if you're a fan of kind of like 70s folk rock, think of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, or some like Neil Young and stuff, you will love this album. She was an amazing singer-songwriter, obviously able to interpret from other songwriters as well. And it's just very sad. Things happened. For whatever reason, the album was not released. She moved back with her parents, who I believe were living in Florida at the time she was in her teens, and the album may never have been come out. There's liner notes and there's more details about how this album came to be released by Omnivore Recordings. But I, for one, am very thankful that more than a half century after it was put to analog tape, this album is finally out. And she is, just so people know, she is now obviously a senior citizen, but Linda Hoover is alive. And I'm glad she got to live to see this album released. And she even contributes to the liner notes on the album as well.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Walter Becker, Donald Fagen, Jeff Skunk Baxter.
Yeah. Pretty incredible. Yeah. And there's other noted musicians. So obviously she had some people behind her trying to make, get the big push and get this album out. And history is riddled with artists that were very promising that maybe nothing happened for them. I know we've talked to Michael Ubaldini on some level, and some other really top tier artists that have been overlooked. But this is one where it simply wasn't even issued. But now it has. Yeah. Now, thankfully, it has come out, and hopefully, it gets some well-deserved attention.
And I've heard my share of passed over albums, unreleased albums that should have been released, artists who should have been huge but never were, but still created amazing music.
Exactly.
So I'm definitely intrigued to hear this. The Steely Dan connection only makes it more intriguing.
It does, yeah.
And I'm glad that Steely Dan connection is there, because I'm not sure. I'm not speaking bad of anybody for thinking this way, but I'm not sure that many people would be interested in this person not knowing who she is without the Steely Dan connection.
Exactly. So
I'm glad it's there, because it'll hopefully get people interested. And if the album's as good as you say it is, then I'm really glad it's there. Yeah.
So just really quickly, Linda does vocal and harmonies. Walter Becker and Donald Fagen do the arrangements on the album. Walter Becker plays bass and electric guitar. Donald Fagen plays keyboard. So you can see that they were fully immersed in the development of these recordings. So it's important just from that perspective, because Steely Dan is such a seminal, enduring artist. But it's nice that they found the tape somehow, and they sound really good. They've obviously worked really hard to remaster these, so for modern day ears, but yeah, I'm very happy it came out.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay. Definitely. I'm going to have to check this out once we're done here today. But before we take off, let's talk about Brian Wilson. And he turned 80. Couple days, how many days? A few days after Paul McCartney turned 80.
He turned 80 on June 20th, and Paul McCartney turned 80 on June 18th.
Yeah, just a couple days later. And we were both kind of saying, we want to wish him a happy birthday. We decided the one thing we could do, beyond just saying happy birthday, Brian Wilson, and asking people to share their thoughts on Brian Wilson, which we welcome you to do, we wanted to both talk about a release by Brian Wilson that we feel needs more attention. And so do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. So just about everybody's familiar with the Beach Boys releases, and especially their hit singles. So we wanted to move beyond that into his solo career, which has been greght too.
Yes.
I do really quickly want to tell everyone I had the honor of meeting Brian Wilson at the NAMM show back in 2007, and it was one of those out-of-body experiences where you're meeting one of the all-time great artists of the 20th century. So I just wanted to say that. Now, I've seen him a number of times, a big fan, but I'm actually going to pick an album that probably very few people have heard about. This is an album he did with the collaborator Van Dyke Parks. titled Orange Crate Art. For fans of the Beach Boys' more adventuresome music, a few years ago, a 25th anniversary reissue of Orange Crate Art came out, and it was a reissue of a 1994 collaboration. And this is a project that it's really genre defined in terms of the songs were penned by Parks, who recruited Brian Wilson back into the studio to sing his songs. And we all know Brian Wilson has a great voice. He's lost some of that as he's gotten older, but back in the 90s, I think which is the first time I saw him perform, he still sounded really good. And I think that his vocals really embolden and kind of elevate this project. And I really recommend it. If you're a fan of like Burt Bacharach's music or some of Brian Wilson's more experimental work, either with solo or with the Beach Boys, I think you'll really like Orange Crate Art. And I really encourage people to check that out.
Yeah, that is one I have not heard. So in fact, yeah, I've heard quite a bit of his solo stuff. I'm probably a bigger fan of all Wilson's work with a solo artist than with the Beach Boys. Although I do like a lot of the Beach Boys stuff too. I'm just probably a bigger fan of his solo work.
If I don't know if it's still available, but I'm sure you can seek it out on eBay or Amazon and track it down.
Sounds good. If nothing else, I'm sure it's hopefully available for streaming. So I'm going to talk about an album from 2008, released by Brian Wilson, entitled Lucky Old Sun. And this was his 7th studio album. And interestingly enough, it was written in collaboration with Wilson's bandmate, Scott Bennett, with spoken word poetry commissioned from Van Dyke Parks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just funny coincidence there. Now, the genesis of this album largely derives from the 1949 song entitled That Lucky Old Sun, which was originally recorded by Frankie Lane. Most people are probably more familiar with Frank Sinatra, though, as far as that song is concerned. And to kind of give you an idea, it is a concept album, first of all. And Brian Wilson himself describes the album as a celebration of life in Southern California. The album musically explores the idyllic portrayals of Southern California that Brian Wilson is known for from his work in the Beach Boys, but also it explores some of his own personal loss and emotional pain that he has struggled with over the years as kind of a juxtaposition to that idyllic view of Southern California. At times, it's wonderfully joyous, it's textured, it's layered, as you might expect something from Brian Wilson to be. You know, all those beautiful layers of vocals and instruments, on top of each other, and very joyous, especially when he's talking about, all the well-known landmarks of Southern California and its beaches. But then he will talk about, there'll be lines where he talks about last night I dreamed I was singing with my brothers, And another point in the album, he said, he'll reflect on so many people in Los Angeles, yet you'd never think I'm so lonely, that I could feel so lonely or surrounded by so many people. Yeah. And so there's strong emotion in the lyrics about it. It's probably the most, at least from what I've heard, it's the most soul-bearing I've ever heard him be in music as far as his own personal life. So really great album. I strongly recommend That Lucky Old Sun. It's out there for streaming on the streaming services. It's still available you can easily get it as a CD. I think there was a vinyl release, but I know you can easily get it as a CD. I have the CD, bought it back in the day, and it's awesome. It's a great album. But that's my recommendation. I don't know if you've ever heard it.
I have heard that. Yeah, and you're talking about it makes me think, hey, I need to re-listen to that. Yeah.
I'm ready to re-listen to it all over again. But I've never had heard of your release, so I'm going to go to Tidal, and hopefully it's there and I can start listening to it.
Exactly. If not, I'll loan it to you. We'll make sure you get to hear it because you're a big fan, so you need to hear that album.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody, we just want to wish Brian Wilson a happy 80th birthday. And so share us your thoughts about Brian Wilson on his 80th birthday. Anything you want to say? If we didn't talk about a release that we should have talked about, if there was a headline we didn't talk about today, let us know what that is. Put that in the comments so we can all know more about it. And Robert, cool getting together with you this week.
Yeah, it was. Hey, good to see you, TJ. Always great to talk music.
I'll look forward to talking to you next week, and we'll look forward to having you there. Everybody take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you later, everybody.